You're in a quick sync that's somehow 30 minutes long. Your manager has that calm, careful voice, like they're reading from a script they didn't write but still plan to win an Oscar for. They pull up a slide, your work, your numbers, and then they say it. Great job on the project. I'm really proud how we drove this outcome. We. Not your name, not even a nod, just corporate group cosplay. And the worst part, you can't even react like a human, because you're doing math in your head while they talk. Rent, car insurance, the minimum payment, the student loan auto draft you keep forgetting is on the 15th, groceries, that weird charge you hope doesn't overdraft you. Your heart rate isn't up because you're angry. It's up because you're trapped. You nod, you swallow it, you smile like a team player. And as you do, you feel that familiar physical sensation, that pit in your stomach, the one that shows up every Sunday afternoon, the one that steals your sleep, the one that whispers, "Don't screw this up. You can't afford to lose this job." That is survival mode, and most Americans are living there longer than they want to admit. Survival mode isn't laziness. It's scarcity. Here's what nobody tells you in those resilience training modules. The reason you can't think clearly at work might not be you. It might be scarcity. Psychologist Eldar Shafir and economist Sendil Mullainathan studied what happens when people feel like they don't have enough money, time, stability, and they found something brutal. Scarcity creates tunneling. You lock on to the urgent thing right in front of you, today's emergency, this week's bill, that email from your boss, and your brain has less room for everything else: planning, creativity, long-term thinking, decision-making. Shafir describes it as scarcity consuming mental bandwidth, leaving less brain power for problem solving and thinking ahead. That's why when you're broke or close to broke, you don't just feel stressed, you feel small. Your world shrinks to the size of your next paycheck. And in that state, a job isn't just a job, it becomes a life support machine. So when your manager dumps another high visibility opportunity on your desk without extra pay, what do you say? You say yes, because you're not negotiating. You're surviving. That's the part people miss. Survival mode makes you compliant, not because you're weak, because you're out of options. And when you're out of options, your paycheck becomes your handler. The $20,000 threshold, TFNI. Now let me introduce a number that changes your posture, your sleep, your spine. Not a magic number, not a retirement number, a leverage number, $20,000. I'm calling it the threshold for negotiation initiation, TFNI. Because $20,000 is often enough to do something most people have never had the privilege of doing: not panic. It's not a yacht, it's not a mansion, it's not never work again money, but it is I don't have to accept disrespect today money. And yes, $20,000 means different runway for different people. If your expenses are low, it's longer. If you're supporting kids, paying high rent, or covering medical costs, it's shorter. But psychologically, for a huge number of everyday Americans, it's the first time you can feel an actual cushion between you and catastrophe. And that cushion matters because so many people don't have one. In the Federal Reserve's Economic Well-Being of U.S. Households in 2024 report, published May 2025, 63% of adults said they could cover a hypothetical $400 emergency expense using cash or its equivalent, meaning a significant chunk of the country is one tire blowout away from chaos. So when you get to $20,000, you're not just stacking money. You're buying something your promotion can't buy. Because promotions are usually sold like freedom, but they're often just more responsibility dressed up as recognition. More meetings, more Slack pings, more stakeholder alignment, more quick-turn deliverables, more circle back offline, more corporate BS. And sometimes, sure, more pay. But $20,000 does something a title never does. It gives you the power to say no. Not angrily, not dramatically, just calmly. No, I can't take that on. No, I'm not available this weekend. No, I'm not coming back to the office 5 days a week. And the wild part is, once you can say no, your brain exits tunneling. You stop living one bill away from fear, and you start living in growth mode, the mode where you can think, plan, learn, and choose. Walking away money. Online, people call this FU money. The idea is simple. Money that lets you walk away from a bad situation without begging for permission. And the most honest explanation I've seen is from J.L. Collins writing about FU money and what it really buys. Not luxury, freedom. The freedom to work for people you respect and to stop working for people you don't. J.L. Collins NH puts it bluntly. People who live paycheck to paycheck are slaves, and debt adds stouter shackles. Now let's translate that into the modern workplace. It's Wednesday at 6:47 p.m. You're packing up, finally, when your manager hits you with, "Hey, can you jump on something real quick? Need it by tomorrow morning." Not a request, a test. And in survival mode, you do it, because you're bluffing, because you can't risk being seen as not committed. But with a walking away fund, you're not bluffing. You can say, "I can't. If it's urgent, we can reprioritize tomorrow." And if they threaten you with consequences, you can let the silence hang, because you have what matters most in any negotiation, a real alternative. In negotiation theory, there's a concept called BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. It's literally the standard you should judge any deal by. If this deal is worse than what I can do instead, I walk. And if you want the workplace version, your BATNA is I can leave. Not I'll leave. Not I might leave. I can. That's why $20,000 is powerful. It turns quitting from a fantasy into an option. And here's the paradox that messes with people. When you stop acting desperate, you often become more valuable, because desperation leaks. It shows up in your posture, your tone, your willingness to accept garbage work, your fear of conflict. When you have a strong BATNA, you stop over-explaining, you stop apologizing, you stop volunteering to be miserable. You get clearer. You ask better questions. You stop reacting to every email like it's a fire drill. And management often reads that as confidence. Sometimes they even mistake it for leadership. So ironically, the moment you don't give a shit in the performative way is often the moment you start getting treated like someone who matters. Not always. Some workplaces are too toxic, too political, too broken. But when it happens, it's because you stopped negotiating like a hostage. $20,000 isn't retirement. It's dignity. Let's be clear. $20,000 isn't enough to retire. It's not never work again money. It's not I'm moving to the Galapagos money. But it is enough to do something priceless. Reclaim your dignity. Reclaim your sleep. Reclaim your health. Because toxic workplaces don't just steal your time, they steal your nervous system. And the APA's Work in America survey data shows how real this is. Nearly 1 in 9 workers, 19%, describe their workplace as toxic, and those workers were far more likely to report negative mental health impacts from their work environment. So the real argument here isn't save $20,000 so you can flex, it's Save $20,000 so you can stop trading your body for a paycheck. Because once you have a walking away fund, you can finally run a clean utility comparison in your life. Is this job worth the stress? Is this title worth the migraine? Is this manager worth the insomnia? Is this promotion worth becoming a full-time corporate tool speaking in meaningless buzzwords until you forget what you even like? And when the answer is no, you can actually act on it. So if you're listening to this and you're stuck in survival mode, here's the point. Don't chase the promotion like it's the only exit. Build the fund. Even if it's slow, even if it's messy. Because $20,000 doesn't buy you a new life. It buys you a choice. And sometimes that choice is the difference between getting by and finally being able to breathe.